Premarin comes from pregnant mare's urine. So, it's horse estrogen, basically, not human estrogen. And so the issues was that one, we were using a chemical that our bodies don't recognize. Two, it was going through our mouth, which we weren't designed to eat hormones. So when
Right.
it goes through our mouth, our liver metabolizes it, recognizes it's something foreign,
Yep.
and tries to get rid of it. So it turns it into something else. And so that's where the concern and the problems lie with the risks associated with hormone replacement. So people are scared of breast cancer is the number one thing, and then strokes and heart disease. So, the term bioidentical means that twofold, in my opinion. One is that we are using medications that are chemically the exact same chemical structure as the hormones that our body naturally would have made. So whether that's an estrogen or a progesterone, it was what we call bioidentical estrogen or progesterone.
Should you consider hormone therapy after menopause, even if you feel fine? And are bioidentical hormones really different from older drugs like Premarin? And what role do progesterone and toxins and timing play in a woman's long term health? These are a lot of questions that women have, including me, and the answers aren't always very clear. So today I'm talking with Dr. Aimee Duffy, who specializes in hormone health for women. She explains what hormone therapy actually is and what's changed over the years, and what women need to know to make the best decision for them. This is the Green Living Now podcast. Welcome, Aimee.
Thank you.
So, bioidentical hormone replacement, can you talk about what that means?
Absolutely. Hormone replacement in general, like when a woman, although you can do it for men too, but women
Yes.
go through menopause. And the theory is that as they go through menopause, their hormones go away. And do we want to replace those hormones back again? And way back when, it's definitely benefits in terms of not just treating a symptom. So classically, like a woman goes through menopause and she has hot flashes, right?
Right.
And so it's, oh, we need something to stop these hot flashes. This treatment has been there for years and years, but generally it was done with like Premarin or Prempro was like the old school way to do
Yeah.
things. So back in the early 2000s, the Women's Health Initiative did a big study and found some problems with that particular type of medication.
Yeah.
And so there was a big halt, and there was this big dramatic scare about hormone replacement. And what people didn't really do is recognize that was for Premarin and Prempro, which is
Mm.
not bioidentical, meaning not
Mm.
chemically the same structure as the hormones that we would have in our body. So Premarin comes from pregnant mare's urine. So, it's horse estrogen, basically, not human estrogen. And so the issues was that one, we were using a chemical that our bodies don't recognize. Two, it was going through our mouth, which we weren't designed to eat hormones. So when
Right.
it goes through our mouth, our liver metabolizes it, recognizes it's something foreign,
Yep.
and tries to get rid of it. So it turns it into something else. And so that's where the concern and the problems lie with the risks associated with hormone replacement. So people are scared of breast cancer is the number one thing, and then strokes and heart disease. So, the term bioidentical means that twofold, in my opinion. One is that we are using medications that are chemically the exact same chemical structure as the hormones that our body naturally would have made. So whether that's an estrogen or a progesterone, it was what we call bioidentical estrogen or progesterone, and we're using it often not by mouth. So
Mhm.
particularly for estrogen and testosterone, applying it either topically, vaginally. Sometimes we can put it like we call it a troche, so it's sublingual, and you just let
Oh,
it absorb in your mouth. And so it goes through your salivary glands and you're
yep.
not swallowing it. So it's not going through your liver. So
Okay.
that also allows us to use much lower doses because we don't need to go 90% through your liver and then we only get left with the 10% that's actual hormones. We can use various hormones from that perspective. A lot of people will go to their doctor, I'm having hot flashes, and they go, oh, do you have a uterus? Yes or no? And if you have a uterus, you get this combination. If you've had a hysterectomy, you get this combination. And they say, try this and see what happens. And then come back in 3 months, come back in 6 months. Pending your symptoms, we can
Hmm.
adjust the dose.
So I'm curious. You said it's different for with the uterus versus without. Why is it different?
So the theory is that, and this is theory, so this is
Okay.
not real. Well, it is
Okay.
real, but in a different way, and I'll explain.
Okay.
So the theory is that if you have a uterus, then you need to have progesterone to protect the uterine lining from too much stimulation of estrogen
Okay.
so that you don't get endometrial cancer or uterine cancer.
Ooh. Okay.
Now, my opinion, based on all my studies and
Yeah.
experience, is that we need progesterone for all kinds of things. So, not just for your uterus, but you need it for your brain and for your breasts and your skin and your bones and all kinds of stuff. When I treat women who are postmenopausal that we're going to be putting hormones on, they always
Yeah.
get progesterone whether they have a uterus or not. So,
Okay.
that doesn't change my treatment plan. So for a lot of women, they might have had a hysterectomy, so they only get estrogen and then they're very out of balance. They're getting a lot of
Right.
estrogen support, but they're not getting that progesterone support. That's
Right.
very calming. It really helps the brain. And like I said, it's actually breast health protective. So there's a lot of misunderstanding and communication going on with that because Prem Pro, which had prometrium, which is a synthetic progesterone, actually had worse outcomes in terms of breast cancers and heart disease and things. But again,
Yikes.
it was synthetic progesterone, not bioidentical. So it actually did the opposite of what progesterone should do because it sat there and blocked the receptors so they couldn't get what they needed. So my patients, if you were coming to me for hormones, we would do testing first. So I do saliva testing for hormones.
Okay.
In the blood, your hormones are like pretty low because they don't hang out in your bloodstream and they go where they're going to go and then they don't exist anymore.
Okay.
Saliva testing will allow us to see really what your actual tissues are being exposed to. So we need to get a baseline. There's lots of different hormones. There's estrogens. There's three types of estrogens. There's progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, and then I measure cortisol, looking at how your body responds to stress and things like that. So we can get all of that through a saliva test. And
Huh.
then based on what your symptoms are, what our goals are, and then what your labs tell us, then we prescribe a compounded hormone. Compounding mean it goes to a special pharmacy where they mix it up for us. So it's not just
Yep.
something that's sitting on the shelf. They actually make it for you based on what your testing is and what I
Yeah.
prescribe. You get some combination of what's out of balance and what we need to treat. Then we do that for about 3 months or 6 months, depending on your situation. And then we repeat the test so that we, one, can see how things are going. We're not just going by how you feel, but we want to
Right.
look and make sure that the hormones are balanced. So that way we're treating you from not only a symptom perspective, but that we're doing it without harm, where we're not just throwing it at you and kind of let me know how you feel. And
Right.
because there's a lot of things hormones can help with that aren't symptoms. And we can
Mm.
dive into that a little bit too.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to do that. But one question I've always had is why is it that we have to treat menopause? like, how is it that the female body, we're designed to have menopause?
Yes.
Why why is it that we have to treat it with hormones? Like, why isn't this just naturally balancing
Well,
itself? Do you know what I mean? No
yeah,
question
question.
out
We hear
there.
that all the time. Like,
Okay.
why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Isn't it natural to go through menopause? And so let's just
Correct.
be natural, right? And I think there's a couple parts to that question. One is that we evolved fairly quickly from the caveman state compared to natural evolution or whatever you want to call it. And so
Mhm.
before we were born, we procreated and we died at about age 40. And
Oh,
so there wasn't menopause in
right,
caveman
right.
world. So we didn't have to think about either symptoms and or preventative type things. And so
Okay.
over the last, I don't know, 100 plus years, you can see where average lifespan has increased, right? So we've
Yeah.
learned things like how to not get sick. And then it's a little scary because I think we're starting to see a little bit of a flattening of that curve because
Yeah.
of diabetes and heart disease and cancers and things that are
Right.
coming, which ties into your topic, which is
Yep.
our food,
Household
dysfunction,
products or holistic health
our
versus
environment,
conventional.
all this
Yeah.
sort of stuff is poisoning us basically. So now we have all these chronic diseases. But
Correct.
but for a long time we figured out how to live longer. And
Yes.
so now we have a significant portion, maybe half, depending on when you have menopause. But if menopause is at or around age 50 and women are living till 80s, then
Mhm.
that's a pretty significant portion of life without hormones.
Yeah.
And so one, it's a symptom driven thing. Like what we'll hear a lot is one, we're having hot flashes, we're not sleeping, my
Yeah.
brain's not working the way it used to. So there's cognitive decline, I have pains. Hormones really have some significant benefits to them
Mhm.
from a preventative health standpoint. And so we have study after study, and this is something that we talk about in all these conferences I go to. We're actually trying to retrain and teach people to understand that there's positive things for hormones and not all these scary negative things. And in fact, we know that hormone decline, whether it's estrogen, progesterone, or testosterone, causes cognitive decline. It
Mhm.
causes cardiovascular dysfunction. So when we put people on hormone replacement, particularly the sooner we can catch them before
Mhm.
their hormones go away, the
Yeah.
better. We know estrogen decline particularly causes osteoporosis. So loss of bone in women, particularly, we see it much more than in men.
Mhm.
So not only are we sitting there trying to help support a symptom, but we're actually using hormone replacement bioidentical, so it's natural,
Yeah.
as a preventative. We're
Yeah.
protecting your brain, we're protecting your bones, we're protecting your heart. Women want to feel good, they want to feel young. So some of
Yeah.
this is called anti-aging medicine. And it's
Mm.
not like going backwards necessarily, but can we slow the aging process by supporting hormones are really important for your hair. So we see a lot of
Yeah.
women as they go through menopause and age, their hair gets very thin and their skin also gets very thin. So we see more wrinkles, we see more of that skin sort of abrasion from just
Yeah.
getting bumped or something like that as we go
Hmm.
through menopause. Hopefully that explains it. Why are
Yeah.
we treating? One, we figured out how to live longer. We need that support. And because
Yeah.
it's safe, and we have plenty of studies that show it's safe, and not only is it safe, but it's actually doing you more good than harm to use hormone replacement to make you healthier.
That's so interesting. So I totally get the whole we're living longer thing. I'm curious because I'm 62 and I had a partial hysterectomy due to a fibroid. I
Mhm.
still have one ovary and I had hot flashes for a little while. They weren't really disruptive, but they've disappeared.
Yeah.
Would you recommend somebody like me go on bioidentical hormone replacement just for those other protective reasons? Or if I'm not, because I don't have
Generally,
the brain fog or
yeah. And
anything.
that's where it becomes an individual conversation, right? So hot flashes specifically occurs because of the change in hormones. So when you go
Mm-hmm.
from what your body usually is used to, and
Right.
then suddenly we're having a decline, then
Yep.
that's where hot flashes come from. So it's not unusual to go through menopause and then be on the other side of menopause and not have a lot of symptoms.
Yeah.
And so everybody's a little bit different. It can be obvious with hot flashes and things like that as things change, whether it's brain fog, whether it's you can have some vaginal dryness issues. You could have a bone density that shows that our bones are thinning a little bit. Again, cardiovascular wise, we might be looking at that. What the other part of that answer to your question is that what the studies show, and that's why I was saying the closer we can get to when you go through menopause and replace those hormones, the better the results or the better the outcome.
Okay.
Meaning, you're in your 30s and your 40s and your hormones are hanging out and they start to decline.
Mm.
And we're not necessarily getting them back up to a 20-year-old. We have certain ranges that we look for that we know are beneficial. And instead of being at zero, we're going to be maybe at 3 or 4, where you might have been at 20 when you were 20,
Right.
just giving you
Right.
numbers. So the longer you hang out at zero,
Yep.
despite symptoms or whatever, the harder it is to catch up and get back to that. What the studies show us is that the benefits that we're talking about come within the first 10 years of menopause. After 10 years, there's not necessarily bad things that happen, but we don't see as much of the benefit. So then you have to have that conversation, risk versus benefit, and
Yeah.
whether this is useful or helpful pending your situation. So I don't know the answer to that. I would have to
Yeah.
look at it from a symptom perspective and then, the whole picture of are there any other risk factors that we might want to be supporting for hormones. And
Mhm.
we might use different hormone combination because of that situation versus somebody who was right at 50 or 48 or something like
Right.
that. So
And so
it's very
you,
complicated.
it certainly is. And so I'm going to guess that you can't get hormones necessarily through food or supplements, that it's a specific type of
Yeah,
hormone alternative. Or what would you say?
You can. I think
Okay.
the struggle that I find with that is that like progesterone, often people have found like progesterone cream, if you've ever heard of progesterone cream made by yams.
Yes, I have. Wild,
So
yeah.
wild yam cream actually
Right.
is a progesterone support supplement.
Yes.
It's just very hard to keep the dose
Is there a
effective, I
balance?
guess.
And is there a balancing issue if you're taking progesterone? Should you be taking estrogen of some sort too, or not
Not really. The
necessarily?
opposite is true.
Oh,
So we don't want a whole lot of estrogen without progesterone support, but you can
okay.
have
But you can do
progesterone support
progesterone.
without estrogen.
I
So
see.
that's why it can be sold over the counter. It's not dangerous.
Okay, because I think I
Um,
actually have a wild yam
yeah,
progesterone cream that I got at one time.
that's an over-the-counter thing. It's pretty
Yeah.
low dose.
So you think that's
I don't think you
something that
should
would be worth you?
flat. It can't
Okay.
hurt you.
Okay. Oh,
And
that.
I don't know how it comes. They'll tell you a prime size. As long as you're not putting on 4 pumps, 8 pumps a day, do it within what the range is, then you're certainly not going to cause any harm and cause any overkill from that perspective.
Okay. That's
There's
good to
not
know.
really anything like that for estrogen.
Okay. So even organic soy, even
Soy
fermented.
does have some estrogenic type properties. And so people
Right.
will talk about if you take too much soy, does it mess with estrogen?
Yeah.
And really, it has to do with estrogen receptors. And actually, soy and a lot of other like flax seeds and things like that
Right.
actually help you metabolize estrogen better.
Oh,
Those things are good for you in some
okay.
way. Again, it's just a matter of how can we manage and test that, right? So
Yeah.
if you're going solely by symptoms, but if you're trying to treat something you don't have a symptom for, then
Yeah.
how do you know how much you need? And is it working
Right.
or is it not working? And
Yeah. The saliva test that you mentioned, would that give somebody information that would
yeah,
help with that?
it could help you to understand where you are from a
Okay.
baseline perspective.
Yeah. What's the
Um,
name of that test?
there's a lot of companies that
Oh,
do a saliva test.
okay.
And most of the time, you might be able to find some online that you can order yourself, but
Okay.
I'm not sure how great they are or whether you can
Okay.
figure it out. It's not always self-explanatory that you get this test and then you know exactly what to do with the results. So that's where you probably would want a trained professional to be able to order the test and then help you interpret and determine what your
Right.
needs are. So if Google keywords is like BHRT, like we talked about, or
Right.
bioidentical hormones, natural hormone balancing, those are some keyword searches you could do to find a practitioner that's local to you that might do something like that.
Yeah.
I do saliva testing personally. You can also test through urine. Some people will do like a blood test to start out with to have a
Mhm.
baseline, and that depends on cost and whether we're trying to use insurance or not use
Right.
insurance. And so it gets all
Right.
confusing and crazy. So back to that saliva though, because the progesterone from the yam, that is bioidentical progesterone, so you can measure that and you can actually see it. But if
Okay.
you're using estrogenic type things like soy and stuff, it's a plant-based estrogen, so it's not bioidentical. It's not going to
Right.
show up. If you were eating a whole bunch of soy and then you did a saliva test, it may not show up as estrogen
Estrogen.
in your body. So
Gotcha.
to me, it's really hard to measure and
Mhm.
know whether are you getting enough or are you getting too much or what's happening if you're
Yeah.
using something that's not obviously bioidentical. We get nutrients from soy and good protein and all that kind of stuff. And those are certainly good things to eat. And we're thinking about stuff like osteoporosis and things like that. There's definitely foods that we can eat to support our calcium, to help protect our bones, that kind of stuff.
Something that I've been meaning to get for myself is one of those little mini tramp rebounder things, doing
Yeah.
that kind of activity to help with bone density. Is that something that you would recommend
Yeah.
too? Yeah.
Any kind of weight bearing exercise is what's going to, it's just like anything that if you work it, it makes it stronger.
Yes.
And so if you make your bones have to protect you,
Yeah.
then they're going to be stronger over time. That's why we say that's better exercise than swimming is a great cardiovascular exercise and it's good for muscle building and fat burning, but it does nothing for your bones as you're
Distance.
defying gravity. So you want to be able to find a combination there
Yeah.
of things like that.
Yeah. I'm curious, what do you think most doctors, even integrative doctors, are not understanding about women's health, even the well-intentioned?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think still this misnomer of hormones being bad, it's
Oh,
just out there. I see patients all the time that come in and they had a conversation with their provider, and their provider is telling them that they can't have hormones for whatever reason, or
huh.
they shouldn't be on hormone replacement. So I really think that's still out there. And
Yeah.
even though I guess it was a couple months ago, I want to say November, when the black box warning for at least vaginal estrogen went away.
Oh, I didn't
So
know
that was a
that.
big deal in the media, and we were all talking about finally we have the FDA paying attention to hormones aren't dangerous and
Mm,
there's some safety there. That I think is the most frustrating thing for those of
yeah.
us that are in this world is that there's still so much misinformation out there about hormones. And I would say integrative doctors are probably more open to that. I mean, usually when you're learning about integrative medicine, hormone replacement is certainly part of that. But sometimes even then, again, they're often searching for the supplement way of doing things. And there
Yeah.
are supplements out there that will say estrogen or I don't know, something that I don't even know brands. I just know that there are
Yeah.
some supplements out there that are supposed to be supportive for estrogen balancing. Most of them actually are helping you get rid of estrogen that shouldn't be there. So you can have
Oh,
excess
wow.
estrogen. So this is where nutrition comes in, is that when we talk about plastics, for instance, like
Yeah.
BPAs and chemicals and things, their term is xenoestrogens. And so
Yep.
there are estrogenic compounds that they don't help your symptoms by any means, but
Correct.
they can stimulate your estrogen receptors. And so we really have to have this balance. Like breast cancer can be, or endometrial cancer, hormone cancers can be because we have too much stimulation of the tissue to estrogen without the
Right.
balance of progesterone on board,
Yep.
which is why everybody should just have some progesterone because it's not going to hurt you.
Yeah, that's
Um,
really good advice.
so that really goes into, what you talk about a lot is like what's in your food or your
Right. And
environment. Again,
plastic being a
the
huge issue.
plastics, the chemicals, the sunscreens, and the things that have
Yes.
PDAs in them, and whatever
Yep.
all those words are. So, all of that stuff can interfere with your hormone metabolism.
Right.
It can cause some stimulation of hormone receptors in the wrong way that can lead to some imbalances and dysfunction there, even though we have some natural things out there. And if you're exposed to those things, that's where a lot of those supplements that talk about estrogen balancing are more about helping your body get rid of the stuff that shouldn't be there,
Yeah.
as opposed to actually giving you more estrogen, that sort of thing.
So it's a kind of a fine line between getting rid of the stuff that you don't want in your body that's toxic and then
Mhm.
getting the natural balance of the stuff that you do want.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets complicated too. Like a lot of people will go, okay, I'm going to go do bioidentical hormones, and they put a blinder on to some degree. That's what they're doing. And then again, if you're not looking at the big picture, so all of my patients that come in for hormone replacement, we really do more of whole person look at
Mm.
things. I want to make sure that those hormones are going into a body that is clean and can manage them.
Oh,
They can be stored in places just like other medications. Your liver is a filter. I use this analogy all the time. If you have a lint catcher in your dryer, right? If you're doing load after load of laundry and you never clean out that filter, then your dryer is not going to do its job
that's such a good
and
analogy.
it's going
Yes.
to cause some issues there. And so you can use that analogy for multiple conversations, but in the hormone world, if we've been exposed to a lot of toxins and chemicals and our liver's having to do a lot of work, even if I put good quality bioidentical hormones into your body,
Yeah.
if your liver is not going to be able to filter them out, then your levels may be too high
Yep.
and or your body tries to store them somewhere else, which can cause some dysfunction. So we really make sure that we go through a detox with our patients so that we're making sure we're cleaning the liver and that we are teaching them things about exposure to chemicals and toxins. And that's a whole process that we go through with our patients from an
Yeah.
educational perspective. And I think, again, every doctor is different as to how
Hmm.
detailed and how much time they spend in that process of, yes, I can write you a prescription for hormone replacement, but if you're not paying attention to all of it, then,
It may be a
I'm not
waste
going to
of
say
time.
cause cancer by any means. I don't know the
Right.
answer to that, but we're doing you a disservice by not looking at the big picture.
One of the things that's come up in conversations like this with other holistic minded doctors is that they talk about how doing a detox is not just a simple process because we need to create the pathways out of the body for the toxins
Hmm.
to go, right? Because
Hmm.
a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to do this herbal detox, but then they feel worse.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. We can get super detailed. Basically, there are two parts of a detox. There's what we call phase one and phase two. And
Mhm.
phase one is the ability to release toxins from storage. And so they need to be released and they need to be packaged. So
Yeah.
oftentimes the term is chelation, but they have to be connected to another. molecule in order to be delivered where they need to go. And so there are certain products and supplements that help with releasing of toxins from storage. So you may do a detox that does a really good job of that. But then if you don't have something like a binder or something that we do what we call chelation, where they need to be bound to something, then they're going to just go back into your system.
They'll
And
just be
so
free floating through
yeah,
your
you can,
body,
and
causing
that's why
other
you might
issues.
feel bad
Yeah.
because now you've gotten all this toxin exposure. And so you need to be able to release them, bind them, and then they have to go out. So
Yes.
phase two is to be getting rid of these toxins either through the stool or through urine. And
Right.
so that pathway needs to be open. So you can't do it in somebody who is constipated or not going to the
Right.
bathroom regularly. So like it's a two-step process.
Yeah.
And we start a lot with gut health. And if we have a lot of toxin, I think you need to go through an elimination diet because there's no
Mm.
point in doing a detox if you're going to keep eating things that
Yeah.
are stressful to your system. We do comprehensive stool testing in our practice. And so if your gut's a mess, it's
Mm.
not going to like toxins being delivered into it and it's going to cause more inflammation and more dysfunction. So
Yeah.
we don't even do a detox right away. Like we have to do some work first. Then
Yeah.
we go through a detox. One, to minimally affect you in terms of any side effects. My goal is that we don't have side effects,
Yep.
but two, that it's worthwhile and that you're going to get the result that you're looking for. And that's really hard to measure. We had a speaker at one of the conferences that tried to figure out like what is a lab test that we could do to show whether the detox did its job or not.
Oh,
And
interesting.
it's a research thing, like it's not out there. And he came up with a lot of different things that you can measure because your liver function tests on your labs are not really truly indicative of toxin load in your liver. That's more if the liver is damaged, then we
Mm.
can see some dysfunction there. But if your liver is still working and not damaged, even though it's trying to work hard, there's not always things that we can measure there.
Yeah.
But interesting, one of the things we can go off on all kinds of tangents that he talked about is that the level of stress on your system and resilience and how it can respond to things. And so, one of the things that they did, there were hundreds of patients in this study, they measured something called, oh, I'll tell you what it was in a minute, but
Okay.
they had a label for it, but it was basically like level of tolerance to getting your blood drawn, getting a needle put in your arm. And if you're chill, then you're a 0. If I had to lay down, I almost passed out, like I'm a 10. And what they noticed, and I don't remember exactly how they figured out that this is something they should measure, but
Yeah.
once they figured that out, what they found is that they did blood work on people pre-detox and their blood score, I think they called it a blood test score or something like that, but that score was higher. And then
Okay.
after they went through a detox and they came back, then that score was less. And
So
so
in
I thought
other
that
words,
was
they had
interesting.
less stress getting
Yeah,
their
like
blood taken?
I know, and it doesn't make any sense,
No, because I'm an
but it's
anomaly
sort of
then. I have terrible stress around getting
now,
blood
yeah, and there's other people that there's a bazillion reasons why you
yeah.
can be needle phobic and all that
Or
kind of stuff.
afraid of Western medicine because you've had bad experiences in the
Yeah.
past or
I mean,
whatever.
again, it's
Yeah.
not a perfect test, but overall,
Interesting.
that's the theory. And I would say we've seen that a lot in our practice. So when a brand new patient comes in and they'll comment on, oh, getting my blood work was terrible. You had to take so much blood. I got sweaty or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Or more so seen it with, I don't want to say little kids, but like we've had
Right.
some teenagers come in and like they needed their parent with them. And then when
Mm.
they came back 6 months later to get their blood work done again, after we've done a lot of work with them, it
Yeah.
was like the nurse will say, do you want your mom to come back with you? And they're like, no, I'm fine.
Huh.
So, like, resilience to
Interesting.
stress
Yeah.
is significantly changed. And I'm not just saying all we did was a detox, but he used that example of 30 days later, the people had gone through their detox protocol and they noticed that
Yeah.
this was a change.
That's
So I
interesting.
don't know how that physiologically, whether that's neurotransmitters or again, just your body not being so stressed out by
Yeah.
having to deal with all these toxins.
Yeah. It's interesting thing I've seen on some Facebook groups with non-toxic conversations, people talking about how once they started to clean up their diet and change their household products to natural, less toxic, ideally non-toxic ones, that they feel worse initially. And I feel like it's a lot to do with what we've just been talking about is that if you
Mhm.
don't clear the pathways and actively do things to get those toxins out of your system,
Yeah.
then initially you're going to feel worse, right? But once you get
Yeah.
over that edge of getting those toxins out and then not putting more in, then
Right.
you feel so much better. One thing I will note, however, is that I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I am so aware, not so much sensitive to, but aware of scents. We have this organic farm here in Vermont that my husband and I own and run. We have an open air farm stand, and I can smell somebody's cologne or perfume as soon as they get out of their car before they're even inside the farm stand. And I'm just like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's so strong to me. And I think I've heard other people say the same thing, that once you stop using those heavily scented, fragranced products, you become so much more aware of them. They really hit you
Yeah.
in a much more powerful way, not necessarily causing symptoms, because I think I'm pretty resilient and it doesn't,
Yeah. It's just more of an
it's
awareness.
just
And I
like,
think there's a theory about saturation, right? And
oh,
so if
yeah.
you saturate your receptors, then they get numb.
Yeah.
And you can do that with any, like the people who are capable of putting their hand in a flame, right? Like they've done that over and over again to where they've trained their brain to not feel that. If we're exposed to something that intense and that strong for so long, your brain almost decides, I'm not going to smell it anymore.
Yeah.
Versus when our receptors are so clean, they can really connect to something like that.
Yeah.
We see that a lot as people clean up their diets and clean up their environment, that they talk about how good food tastes. I don't know if you've
Yes.
noticed that.
Oh, God,
They're
yes.
so
Because I
used to
do
like needing to add so much extra flavor to stuff
salt
or
or sugar. Yeah.
yeah. And
So
once they clean up, they're like, man, food tastes so good.
it's really interesting. That's been one of the highlights for me. I do food and
Hmm.
farm tours, and the reaction that people have to eating a green bean off the plant or picking a cherry tomato that's still warm and putting it in their mouth and then having the lunch that I prepare is so incredible. Like it is
Hmm.
one of the most powerful things. And then it inspires people to start eating more organic food, or ideally growing it themselves,
Right.
or having their own garden is a big deal. Or even if you don't have land, you can grow stuff on your sunny
Yeah.
windowsill. But the biggest thing that I've noticed is that I've had kids come and their parents will pull me aside and say, Joey doesn't really like vegetables, so don't take it personally. Okay, how's this going to go? And especially because the lunch is all vegetarian. Not
Yeah.
that I only eat vegetables, but then I noticed the kids are eating the vegetables as we're going through the fields, and they're eating everything, even like
Hmm.
mustard greens and kale. I had a little 3-year-old eating lavender flowers, and I just thought, this is so incredible that people just instinctively know the difference between real good
Yeah.
food versus the junk that we're mostly being
Hmm.
exposed to. I have a question for you that's completely off the topic here. I know you talked about joy in your profile, and I'm curious, how did joy become a non negotiable part of your work?
I think lucky for me, I started this type of work early on in my career. So I went from medical school to residency. For 1 year, I was a traditional family practice doctor, and then I got recruited to an OBGYN office to
Mm.
deliver babies, which is amazing and
Ooh.
fun and good medicine. And that's where I got into this women's health thing. So if I wasn't
Ah,
delivering babies, I'm seeing women in their annuals and problem visits, and that was not a huge part of family practice by training. And we had a little bit of women's health lectures and things like that, but we didn't really learn a lot about hormone replacement and that sort of thing. So that's where I felt inadequate. And so I had to go learn. And that's where I learned about bioidentical hormones and natural hormone balancing and things like that. So I was there for about 4 years, but really fairly quickly in that career, I started doing this more natural hormone balancing stuff. And then I don't know what it's like in Vermont, but a lot of places basically now, if doctors aren't independent, which is very rare,
yeah,
they're part of a hospital system for the most part, so a bigger system. And
yeah,
so the OBGYN practice that I was at was making a decision that they were going to get bought out by the hospital system. And I knew that was not the direction I wanted to go. So that gave me
yeah,
the opportunity to open my own practice. So I opened Carolina Integrative Medicine 15 years ago now. So, like I said, luckily I got out of it pretty quickly, but
yeah.
I remember the days of being driven by your charting and the amount of patients that you had to see and staying up late at night getting your charts done
Oh, man.
and well, we had to be on call because we had to deliver babies, but
Yeah,
on call for other things wasn't always fun. And I learned fairly early that I didn't want to have the burnout that other practitioners have.
yeah,
And what I see, and I still see it, and I saw it a little bit in me initially, is if I'm burnout and not happy and not taking care of me, then I'm not going to take care of you very well. And I'm not going to have the capacity, the patience, the brain power to do the research or things that I need to do. I opened my practice with the decision that I wanted to have more time to spend with people because I have all these things that I want to talk about. And I found that I wanted more time with patients. We only work 4 days a week, so our practice is closed on Fridays.
Oh,
And
wow.
we're not just spoiled, but I need my team to do the things that they need to get done so that when they're in the practice, they're 110% there for the patients. And our team is required to, not mandatory, but they all do. We do a detox together in the spring. We take care of ourselves. We have a whole little section on our teams where it's called wellness and mindfulness. So some will say, hey, does anybody want to go for a walk? So in between patients at lunchtime, whatever, like we're moving. Somebody will put here's a 5-minute meditation I found this morning, do
Oh,
that. So we practice what we preach there. And if we can't have joy in our lives and joy in what we're doing with our patients, what's the point? I see so many physicians or just people in general that hate their job and they're
oh
just
gosh. Yeah.
miserable.
Yeah.
And I know not everybody has 100% complete control over that. And so I'm very grateful that I had that opportunity to open my own practice and
Yeah.
figure it out. And it's been a roller coaster. Owning your own
Fun and
business is
games.
a little crazy. And I'll tell you, I didn't go to medical school to learn about how to run a business. So that's been a big
Oh,
learning
yeah.
curve.
There's that.
And I get a lot of coaching and a lot of support and mentorship from the business aspect of things. But
Yeah.
I do a lot of coaching now, mentoring myself. And how do you build a practice that is going to take care of you? And not
Yeah.
just financially, that's a support system that we need, but people are just overworked and overtired. And that's the nature of who we are, is that we want to help
Yes.
everybody all the time. But you've got to be able to block your schedule. You've got to be able to put some boundaries in there because if you're overworked and overtired, one, it's not fun. And
Yeah.
two, you're not going to be a good practitioner.
Absolutely.
We have
So
fun.
that's awesome. And so what gives you the most joy?
I love playing tennis and I had residency and I didn't do anything and started a friendship with the owner of the local gym. And so we'd hang out every once in a while and he'd be like, what are you guys doing this weekend? She's like, oh, we got tennis. And I'm like, what? Why are you always playing tennis? What is this about? And so she got me into it. And that was 10 years ago now. It brought me back to when I was little and playing softball tournaments. Now we play tennis matches and we get into tennis tournaments and it's blocked in my schedule. I love being outside anytime I can be outside. This
Wow.
afternoon, I'm going to take my computer outside and do my workout there. I just naturally will get outside as much as I possibly can. Those things outside of work bring me joy. I love what I do. I always joke about it. I make people cry all the time and in a good way. So when patients come in and I'm just meeting them and they're crying because somebody's actually listening and connecting to them, or
Yeah.
I get to see them in their follow-up and you gave me my life back. I
Oh,
started this whole
wow.
thing delivering babies and bringing life into the world. And I don't do that anymore because babies don't come between 8 and 5 like they should. And I don't
Darn
want to
it.
get up in the middle of the night.
Yep.
That's why I keep doing what I do.
Yeah.
And now, the more that I'm teaching, it's the same thing over again when I'm with a new practitioner who's just learning all of this stuff and trying to figure it out for themselves. And they get an aha moment and they're like, oh my gosh, this just made my whole day. This just changed everything for me. This one little tidbit that you said, that's exponentially changing lives, like not only for that practitioner, but now for every patient that they're going to see moving forward. I get to just keep doing what I'm doing in so many different avenues and ways. And I'm finding that teaching and speaking and doing this mentorship has really blossomed over the last couple of years. And it can feel very busy because you get asked to do a lot, travel a lot, which is where my mom guilt comes from because I'm not home. But I absolutely love it.
That's so
And I'm
cool.
very grateful that I have a great team. So my team at Carolina Integrative Medicine has been fully trained by me. They know all our protocols. They know what we do. We talk about it. We have clinical team training meetings every other week. I'm there in spirit, if you want to call
Yeah.
it. And I'm very grateful that they can continue to take care of our patients, even if I'm not always physically there. So I can go out and do some of these things I've been doing.
One last question is, if there's one thing you'd love listeners to take away from this conversation, what would it be?
I think as we've talked about, what I talk about a lot is why do we do the things we do? And particularly with what you're talking about is why is it so important for us to eat things that are not laden with chemicals or get rid of the chemicals in our home
Yeah.
is really getting into how does that work inside our body? And I always encourage people when we're talking about what should I eat? What should my diet be? That kind of stuff.
Mm,
Hold that and go, is this going to be fuel? Is this going to help my body grow, focus, think, do all the things that it needs to do? Or is this going to create stress in my system? So if you're sitting there looking at something that you're about to put in your mouth and you just ask that question, it's pretty simple.
Mm,
If it's chemical laden, if it's sugar, whatever, your body has to go, what is this?
yep.
And you may not recognize it as a symptom. So it may not show up and be that obvious, which is why it's so hard
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
this world. Oftentimes we get a really nice dopamine hit when we eat something that tastes good, but we don't realize why we're eating it again an hour and a half later or 2 hours later is because we got to crash and we got to repeat that dopamine hit again. I know it's not always simple.
Yep.
It's not that hard.
Yeah.
And same thing, is this thing that I'm spraying in my house going to be something that, my body is going to be okay with, or is it going to have to do something about it?
Exactly.
And the more we build that up, we got to do something, then it's going to spill over and that's when the symptoms start. So
Yeah.
you may not
Yeah.
be recognized in the beginning, but it'll catch up
Yeah.
to you.
Absolutely. How can people get in touch with you?
All kinds of ways. So Facebook, my business, my office is Carolina Integrative Medicine. We're in Clemson, South Carolina.
Okay.
We can see patients in South Carolina, North Carolina.
Wow.
And even if you're not physically within driving distance, we do virtual medicine for those states.
Nice.
But if you just want more information in general, either our website is carolinaintegrativemedicine.com. We're on Facebook. And then you can find me, Aimee Duffy, on all platforms. Generally, it says Aimee Duffy or Aimee Duffy MD for Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all that.
Cool. And Aimee is
And
spelled Aimee,
yes,
which is unique.
it's the fancy French way. My mom picked that.
Oh, cool.
Aimee Duffy MD. I have my own website. It has some of my speaking and media and stuff on there. All kinds of ways you can find me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This has been a very interesting conversation. I hope that
Awesome.
people took away some really good thoughts and
Yeah,
things that they might look at for themselves to
I hope
really
so too.
improve their health. Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you so much. It was great to
You're
meet you.
welcome. If this conversation got you thinking that hormone health is just one piece of a bigger picture, and that the daily choices that you make, especially in the kitchen, have a huge impact, that's why I created the new 5-day Your Non Toxic Kitchen Reimagined. I'll show you exactly how I evaluate food and products and practices and labels so that you can think for yourself and become your own best guide. Registration is open, and if you sign up before tomorrow night, Sunday, February 15th at midnight Eastern, you'll also get a bonus video where I walk through a real supermarket and show you how I evaluate products in real time. You'll find the link below. And as always, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next week.